Hi, and welcome to Across the Desk. Well, a lot's been going on this week with the new Speaker of the House off in France on a few days junket giving speeches to extreme conservatisms over there, while here we have less than 7 days to fund our own government, as well as the spat at Christian nationalism going on across the country, as well as here in Oklahoma when it comes to instilling their brand of evangelical Christianity into our governments. Christian nationalism, becoming a more and more powerful thing in our United States of America. Republic be damned. No pun intended. Or maybe it was. But really, it is, because when you see things like what happened in Ohio, Ohio passed a constitutional amendment. It goes in their state's constitution that abortion will be codified and that it will be legal in Ohio. Well, what do Republicans there do? They say, we're not going to honor that. Republic, we don't care. That's not how this works. God is first. Christianity is first. Our brand of Christianity is first. Then the Constitution. So as far as their religion is concerned, abortion is bad, shouldn't be done. Don't care about what the Constitution says. Don't care about what the Republic says or the will of the people. We're right, you're wrong, you're going to have to do what we say, the minority says. And it's a small minority. Because, see, it lost by 14 points. The resolution did what they did to change their constitution or to codify that in their constitution. But conservatives, you know how they are. They always like to move those goalposts when they lose, and they hate losing. Of course, we see that all the time. They're crybabies about it. They can't stand it. They can't understand the will of the people when it goes against them. What do they have to do? As you see, they turn into authoritarians and say, nope, we're right, you're wrong. Even if we're the major minority here, you're still going to have to do what we say. And so they do things like trying to take the funding away from the judiciary so they can't rule on anything about it if Republicans balk on it. They even trying to make laws and everything else talking about the judiciary too and what they can do about certain things, which is a separation of powers thing. Here we go, hating the Constitution all over again. Not only that, it gets even worse, you see, because as we're talking about this, down in Florida, a Democrat gave a speech about, hey, 10,000 Palestinians are already dead. More than half are children. When will it be enough? And a Republican representative, came out and she said, all of them. Yeah, when all of them are dead, then we'll be good. It's talking about exterminating. Extermination of the Palestinian people is what she did. And when everybody asked her about it and everything else, she went back into the woodwork and hid. Hasn't said anything about it. A lot of people on one side of the aisle have already come out and said, this is bad. Some people on the Republican side said, it's not a good look, but, we really need to say what she says about it. Which tells you where they're all at on this. Republicans love violence when it comes to supporting their views. We've talked about this before on several shows. They love it. That's what they do. Our former President Trump is all about being as violent as he can be. Or really, he's not going to be violent. He doesn't do that. He's too big of a coward to actually pour any violence himself. He's going to have his supporters do it. That's what he's going to do. He's going to do it all by proxy. He's going to have people foment violence, threaten violence, and even cause violence by proxy. Because, see, former President Trump isn't going to do it himself. That's what we have in a lot of these cases here. This is what we have with conservatism today. We also see it when we look at a group here in Oklahoma called City Elders. What is City Elders? Well, it's a group of about 30 or 40 evangelical churches from the Tulsa area, northeast Oklahoma, got together and decided that, hey, you know what? We need to rule. This is God's country and everything else, and we need to establish this. And so that's basically what these people do. It's pretty out there and extreme, and I want to read you some of their principles. It talks about, hey, the city elders is made together with 60 churches in the Tulsa Metroplex in the state of Oklahoma. They declare that the redeeming power of the blood of Jesus over this city, county, and state. They declare that the forces of hell and darkness have no authority or legal rights and no justification to operate here. Who would these forces of evil be? Well, anybody who's not an evangelical Christian. If you're not an evangelical Christian, then you are evil. And by point, you have no rights, you have no freedoms, and you have no protection of law. So if you're an atheist, if you're Hindu, if you're Buddhist, if you're especially Muslim, well, guess what? You're evil. You're evil, you have no rights, you have no freedoms, you have no protection of law, and if an evangelical Christian wants to do abuses to you, well, they can do it with impunity. See, this is how these people like to operate. See, they're not going to fight you in a fair fight, they're going to fight mano-to-mano, one-on-one. They're going to want to have your hands cuffed behind your back, and then they're going to beat you up. Because, see, that's the only way these guys can do that. The other concerning things here are they declare the kingdom of God has come to Tulsa and the state of Oklahoma. They declare that Jesus Christ is Lord over Tulsa and the inhabitants and its inheritance. You know, because these people are from Tulsa, right? So that's what they're talking about. So they declare Jesus Christ is the Lord over Tulsa. And that's kind of concerning to me, because one thing in our Constitution, the U.S. Constitution, we don't give out titles, especially when it comes to royalty or nobility. So there's no lords here. There are no kings or emperors. There's no barons or marquises. We don't do that in this country. We don't. We have a constitution that says we don't, which is curious that they want to have a constitutional convention and get rid of that so that, you know, they can instill saying something about Jesus being the Lord and King of the United States of America. It's ludicrous, for one thing. It's absolutely anti-freedom, for another. It's absolutely a caste system, a tiered system. Constitutionally, I don't know. But I'm going to say they want a tiered system, obviously, where Jesus and evangelicals are at the top. Everybody else is below that. And depending on who you are and what you believe, well, that's where you reside on these different tiers. And see, so the lower the tier, the less rights and freedoms you have. And if you're not an evangelical Christian, well, you're at the bottom of the tier. And you don't get any rights, you don't get any freedoms, and you absolutely have no protection of our laws. Only evangelical Christians do. It says it right there in their statements of how they feel about things, that what they declare for the state of Oklahoma, the city of Tulsa, and counties everywhere. So they declare that the city of Tulsa is a fortress of faith. Fortress. It's a garrison of godliness, a stronghold of righteousness. Listen, these are all military terms, way military. That's what he's talking about. They're talking about, you know, they're the army or whatever else, you know. So this is definitely talking about armed forces. This is definitely talking about defenses and everything else that they can put in place. And that's what it is. And they say, you know, we declare that this city is known as a city of faith. Well, what if you're in that city and you don't pertain to their faith or practice it or anything else? Then I guess what they say is, you're not a citizen. And this is where conservatives are on a lot of different things. They love doing this. They love having a caste system, a tiered system, where, you know, Christians are at the top, probably police and military, as long as the military are registered Republican, not Democrat. Then those guys are at the top tier, and they get to decide everything. Republic be damned. Will of the people be damned. Your vote shouldn't matter unless you're a Republican. And we heard this before. See, when they were talking, some of the cases about people illegally voting was because Democrats voted. That was pretty much their whole deal. Well, these Democrats voted. Well, yeah, they can. No, they can't. They're not real Americans, you see. Tiered system. If you're a Democrat, you're not deemed a real American at the top of the tiers, you see. You're evil, and you don't have rights, like voting rights. You don't have freedoms, like the ability to register with a political party of your choice. You absolutely don't have protection of law. So when conservatives come at your house and try to kill you and your family, well, they can do it with impunity. You don't have any rights or freedoms anyway. You definitely don't have the protection of law to stop them. They do. They own it. That's how they do this thing. That's the same thing with them owning the American flag. A liberal, a Democrat, can't fly an American flag. I don't know how many times I've seen a video on Facebook where the known Democrat is flying an American flag and the conservative goes, oh, hell no, and goes and steals it from him. You don't deserve this. Really. And this is where they're at. You can see it in a lot of different things. And you see it with this city elders group. City elders, what a dangerous group. And people like Kevin Hern will go speak at it and believe this, that yes, we are the power. It doesn't matter about the republic. It doesn't matter about how people voted. It only matters that the godly people rule. And that's what this is about. So we have here a group called City Elders. Now, the most fascinating thing about this is the guy who started this up, a guy named Jesse Leon. So Jesse Leon, he's a guy who put this together. Who's Jesse Leon? Well, he's actually the chairman of a terrorist group called the Watchmen. Yeah, and he's part of the Black Road Regiment, another terrorist group. So these terrorist groups, Christian terrorists is what they are. Black Road Regiment and the Watchmen. This is what they do. These are armed vigilante groups that are Christian. They are evangelical Christian. And this guy runs these things. So this guy is a known chairman of a terrorist organization, and people like Kevin Hern will go speak at it. So I know Kevin Hern say, well, I don't know anything about the background of this guy, which is baloney. Because, the guys from Tulsa, the guys out there, he's got websites. You can go look him up just like I did and post here. So anything Kevin Hern says about not knowing anything or plausible deniability is just BS. So that's what we have. We have a very extremist group that I really want everybody to pay attention to. Because these guys are behind a lot of different stuff. They're behind Ryan Walters and all his campaign about the anti-wokeness. What's woke? Well, anything that's not evangelical Christian, obviously. So here you go. That's what this is about. This is why at the last school meeting, Bob Lynn was so in a tizzy when all of the Defense of Democracy people showed up at 10 p.m. the day before to be sure to be able to speak and shut pretty much everybody out that was with him. And he was on the phone trying to get people kicked out or whatever else he could do and find ways to manipulate it so people couldn't do their First Amendment right to free speech and redressing their government. Because see, people like Bob Lynn and Jesse Leon, they don't believe you have a First Amendment right if you're not an evangelical Christian. Like I said, no rights, no freedoms, no protection of law. You don't have that if you're not an evangelical Christian. What do these people think they're doing? Who do they think they are? That's their kind of, well, that's just not kind of, that is their line of thinking. So we have the City Elders Group, City Elders Council. Yeah, wanting to make the United States of America a Christian theocracy. That's basically what it is. And this is the whole deal, right? So and you see how they do it, right? So they're all about making sure that only evangelical Christians are in your city council. They're in your libraries or in your schools. They're going to make sure that only evangelical Christians of their very extremist type do anything, run anything. So this way they can abuse, demoralize, go after, and exterminate those who aren't evangelical Christian. That's the only reason why you would have in here, we declare the forces of hell and darkness have no authority, no legal rights, and no jurisdiction to operate here. That's why they put that in there. Exactly. Because they don't believe in everybody having freedom. They don't believe in everybody having rights or the protection of law. They don't. They do not believe in it. You have to think exactly like they do to have any. This goes on further to why they want a constitutional convention. Conservatives want a constitutional convention. Why? Because they absolutely hate the Constitution. Well, at least 80% of it. There's 20% of it they like Amendment 2, 10, and Article 5 that allows for a constitutional convention. They love that stuff. But the rest of it, how we elect our leaders, how the president's elected, the Electoral College, how bills will be passed, how the judiciary will be set, how anything else will be done and paid for, They really don't like that. The First Amendment, they absolutely hate it. Absolutely hate it. 14th Amendment, they hate that too. They hate most of what's in that document, except for 20% of it, like I said. So that's what we get. We got groups like this, city elders going around with Jesse Leon, who's the chairman of a terrorist organization, the Watchman, and affiliated with the Black Robe Regiment, a majorly crazy and semi-terrorist organization for Christians, going around throwing his influence around and making people like Ryan Walters and Kevin Hern do appearances for them and give speeches. That's where we're at. And that's what we got this week on Across the Desk. The city elders, crazy conservative Republicans like Kevin Hern and Ryan Walters, who want to turn us into a Christian cafile, a theocracy. Republic be damned. This is Across the Desk. We're going to see you next week.